Whilst the critics aren't exactly fans of the Rise of Skywalker, the general public seem to really enjoy it, boasting an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes at this moment in time. Whilst it seems to be doing well, the ending has left some fans a little confused. So in this video, I will be breaking down and explaining the end of the Rise of Skywalker. Let's start by talking about Palpatine. How did he survive? The movie touches on this slightly, suggesting that perhaps cloning and Sith magic was involved. We see Kylo pass a tank of Snoke clones, and so this is perfectly viable. The novel, set to be released in March of next year, supposedly explains his survival in more detail. Some supposed leaks claim that moments before the Death Star blew up, Palpatine created a wormhole, taking him to Exegol, the planet of the Sith in the unknown regions. This immense power caused Palpatine to become severely weakened and disfigured, hence why he must be moved around by the robotic arm. This is not fact, only potential leaks of the novel, so it's fair to say that he could well have just used essence transfer and clone bodies similar to the non-canon Dark Empire comics. As we saw, he was missing fingers and was wearing away, and we know that clones age faster than the regular human. His plan then, he wanted Rey to strike him down just like Luke all those years ago so that she can become the new Empress of the galaxy. His spirit, along with the spirits of the past Sith Lords, would have transferred into her, allowing the Emperor to still somewhat be in control. She does not do this, instead passing her lightsaber to Ben Solo so that he can defeat the Knights of Ren. More on them later. His plan failing, he then decides to perform a Force conduit power ritual type thing, whereby he sucks the life force from both Rey and Ben. Seeing as they are so connected, they are a dyad within the Force, as well as Rey's new healing ability, and this is a rare occurrence. This allows Palpatine to heal himself, getting his fingers back, as well as his yellow Sith eyes, also somehow making a very nice looking red and black cloak. Ben is the first to rise after having his life force driven out of him, but the Emperor tosses him away. Rey, after witnessing Palpatine's immense power as he uses Force lightning to take down all of the rebel ships above, calls upon the power of the Jedi before her. We hear Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi as McGregor and Guinness, Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace Windu, Yoda, Kanan from the Rebel series, Ahsoka, Luminara Unduli, and Aayla Secura. She uses their power to defeat the Emperor. There isn't really an explanation as to what happens exactly, but Rey, using Luke and Leia's lightsabers together as no one could or would be able to do it alone, deflects the lightning back at Palpatine, completely obliterating him. This fate is too much for Rey, killing her. Ben returns from the hole he was thrown into, and now considered a Jedi again, he is able to use Force Heal, transferring the last of his life force into her, sharing a kiss before dying himself, but saving Rey. So, it's revealed before all this that Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine. Somehow, whether he hooked up with someone or attempted to create another life like Anakin, Palpatine had a child, who married and had Rey. When Palpatine learned of this, he searched for her, but her parents hid her on Jakku and ran away to protect her, hence her extraordinary power. Now, the Knights of Ren are neither Jedi nor Sith. They follow the dark side. A misconception is that they follow Kylo Ren. That is false. Yes, he becomes their leader, taking on the name Kylo Ren, but they ultimately follow the dark side, hence why we see them fight Ben Solo, as Palpatine is pretty much the human embodiment of the dark side. You can't get much more evil than Palpatine. There is more information slowly coming out about the origins of the Knights of Ren as well as Kylo Ren, so be on the lookout for that. Moving on, there were many little Easter eggs towards the end of the film, one of which being Chewie finally getting his medal for bravery given to him by Maz Kanata. I assume this medal is Han's given to him at the end of episode 4. Speaking of Han, he appeared to Kylo. Many are confused by this, as he's not supposed to be Force sensitive. The Super Carlin brothers made a great video explaining that perhaps he is, just not to the extent of a Jedi's standards, as he seems to get very lucky all the time. Anyway, the idea of Han's appearance is that he is within Kylo's memory, as he's in turmoil over the dark and the light. Leia's death ultimately kickstarted this. We saw that hesitation in The Last Jedi to kill her, and that's the light within him. He's playing out Han's death scene in episode 7, this time doing the right thing, asking for his father's strength to say no to the dark side. He tosses the saber into the ocean and goes to help Rey on Exegol. As said, Leia kick-started her son's redemption. Rey and Kylo are fighting on top of the remains of the Death Star, and Kylo gets the upper hand, going to strike down Rey not before Leia distracting him by using the Force, calling out his name. Dropping his lightsaber in shock, Rey grabs it, stabbing him. Leia, similar to Luke, overexerts herself using the Force, passing away. Rey heals Kylo before taking his ship and leaving, going to Ahch-To, destroying the ship and chucking the lightsaber into the wreckage. A hand appears, grabbing the lightsaber out of there, claiming that a Jedi weapon should be treated with more respect. It's Luke. He explains that he was wrong to hide away on the island and he was out of fear. He then gives Rey Leia's old lightsaber. She then goes back to the wreckage of the ship, grabbing the Wayfinder. The Wayfinder supposedly is a type of Sith holocron that helps you navigate through the unknown regions. There are two, one of which Palpatine owned on the Death Star and is destroyed by Kylo. We know that Palpatine often collected Sith artifacts and treasures, such as the Ring Snoke War. Again, as said, there are many little Easter eggs hidden within the film, the first being references to the Old Republic. The Sith and Republic have battled continuously throughout history, and so it makes sense they would make a rule that all droids must not be able to translate Sith scriptures, to prevent any further returns. The next Easter egg, coming from C-3PO again, is when they are on the desert planet Pisana. He claims that the big festival occurring only happens every 42 years, the same length of time as Star Wars has been in our lives. Later in the movie, we see Rey use the Force trying to bring down a First Order transport ship that has Chewie on it. J.J. Abrams apparently got this idea from the Force Unleashed video games, whereby Starkiller brings down an entire Star Destroyer. Wedge Antilles, old friend of Luke's, makes a cameo in the final battle, and Ewoks make a return on the forest moon of Endor. Now, the final scene. It brings Rey to Tatooine, to Luke's home, now covered in sand. She places Luke's and Leia's lightsabers onto the ground, using the Force to bury them deep within. She then reveals a new lightsaber she has built, made out of her staff and protruding from it an orangey yellow blade. In the new canon, Jedi do not find coloured crystals, they change the colour using the Force. For example, a Sith would have to bleed the crystal, for instance, to get that famous red colour. Yellow indicates to a Jedi Sentinel or Jedi Temple Guard, a Jedi who honed his or her skills in a balance of combat and scholarly pursuits. Seeing as there is no fight for her anymore, the blue blades are of no use to her. That's pretty much everything, apart from one thing, something I genuinely don't know the answer for and have asked many people about. What did Finn want to tell Rey? We see quite a few times in the film Finn sensing Rey and talking about this feeling he gets, most notably when Rey dies. Perhaps he wanted to tell her that he was Force sensitive, or what I originally thought, that Leia told him that Rey was a Palpatine, but then that wouldn't make sense as he seemed surprised and confused about Rey's secrets and learning of this news. Finally, maybe he wanted to tell her he loved her. We don't know. We'll have to wait for an interview or the novel to tell us. What did you think about the film? Did I miss anything? If so, feel free to share down below. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.